All right. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie, and we have a great show for you today. First topic we'll be covering today is going to be about the Dodgers' expectations going into the year and what we think is going to happen with them, and just talking all about that. After that, we'll be talking about our playoff predictions for the season, considering the season does start in 2 days. After that, we'll be talking about the final spring training standings, and in the end, we'll be doing some general news stories around the league. But we're going to get into our show today, and we actually have a special guest joining us, so that is exciting. So here he is. Please welcome Eric from the GSMC Wrestling Gloria podcast. Eric, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Sam?
Good, I'm doing
Glad to
good.
be on.
So glad to have you on. So we're going to, as I said, we're going to get into our first segment today, which is going to be about the Dodgers and their expectations going into the year. So, yeah, I think the first question I want to start off with is, as a baseball fan, what was your overall reaction to the Dodgers offseason?
The Dodgers offseason was, wow. It's pretty much that sums it up. They went out and they got top-tier talent like Ohtani. They also got that ace pitcher from Japan. So I think his name's Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yamamoto.
Yamamoto. And they also picked up Tyler Glasnow. They signed a Teoscar Hernandez. So they're gearing up for kind of, in my opinion, like a make it or break it kind of season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I knew the Dodgers were going to have a big offseason. I kind of expected them to sign Ohtani. I think a lot of fans did. But them signing Ohtani, then also trading for Tyler Glasnow, signing Yoshinobu Yamamoto, $300 million, signing Teoscar Hernandez, even other guys like James Paxton. That I didn't expect. I didn't think at all they would have the monstrous offseason that they did. I thought they'd have a really good one, but they signed all this talent, and that was just real. Like you said, it's just wow. It's really shocking, and I really did not expect that. What was your reaction to seeing them getting all this talent overall?
The Dodgers have always been kind of a successful organization. I think they've won the NL West division 10 times, and they have 11 playoff appearances in a row. So you can just tell by these signings that they're ready to win. They are ready to win. They're ready to kind of pick it up. I know that some of their stars like Mookie Betts and Clayton Kershaw and Freddie Freeman, they're all signed for the next 3 to 4 years. So you can expect kind of like maybe a dynasty in the making. I'm assuming that's what they kind of want to achieve here with the Ohtani signing and the big offseason they've had so far.
Yeah, definitely. So going into that, just as we've known, the Dodgers past few seasons have not had the most success in the playoffs. They got eliminated in the first round last year before that. They did win it in 2020, but since then it's kind of been pretty embarrassing for them in the playoffs. So what do you think they have to do to get over that hump and be successful in the playoffs for the first time in a little while?
I think to get over it is to kind of just continue to be healthy. I know two of the top pitchers, I think it was Walker Buehler and one other pitcher. I think he got injured right before the playoffs, and I think obviously they need effective starting pitching, and of course they need to not dim when it comes to playing under the bright lights, because getting swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks last season was absolutely just dreadful. That was crazy. I'm around the LA area. And as an Angels fan, even I thought that hurt a little bit. I was like, oh, my God, that kind of sucks. So definitely continue to be poised. Just continue playing good baseball, especially in October. And, just kind of keep your head up. You obviously have a bunch of firepower, a bunch of stars that are going to be very pivotal in the pitching rotation, in the offense. And just, I don't know, I think you have a lot of talent there. It'd be silly kind of not to take that plunge toward superstardom within the organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think really the big problem with them has been the starting pitching. Of course, getting swept by the Diamondbacks, it was pretty embarrassing. I don't think really anyone expected that. I thought the Diamondbacks put up a good fight, but I didn't expect them to win in the way they did, and also again sweep them. That was incredible to me. And they had guys like Lance Lynn starting really important games for them, and I think it does boil down to their starting pitching performing and their starting pitching getting healthy. So I would agree there. I do think the starting pitching staying healthy really is the big thing for them, and just everyone performing everyone performing as well. I think their stars have to perform. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, all the guys they've added as well. Of course, Ohtani now. So I think all these guys, the team just really has to come together and perform as one, and that's, in my opinion, is the way to get them far in the playoffs. So after that, Eric, you are an Angels fan. So obviously they did sign the best player in baseball, who also played for the Angels last year, in Shohei Ohtani. And we've had some news about Ohtani in the past week or so about him and his now former interpreter Ippei Muzahara. So overall, what are your general thoughts on this as an Angels fan and as a baseball fan as well? What are your just overall thoughts, and how much you think this would affect the Dodgers?
As an Angels fan, personally, kind of the way the Angels kind of ran their organization for the past couple of seasons, they really haven't surrounded like Mike Trout and Ohtani with a lot of great supporting cast. Like they did sign Anthony Rendon, but he's injury plagued. Like they made a couple of other off-season acquisitions. Well, no, a couple of in-season acquisitions by the trade line of last year to kind of help propel their offense. But it's always the same story when it comes to the Angels. It's always Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani homer in the same game and make history. Angels lose 3-2, like that kind of thing. Like no matter what the Angels can do, and it feels like whenever the big bats come during the game, the pitching rotation shrinks. And when the pitching rotation steps up and holds the other team to like a subpar 3 runs, then the bats only score 1 run or 2 runs. It's and Ohtani being gone is going to be obviously huge, and I think the Angels probably should have did a little more to kind of keep him, because he's a international talent. He's well known all over the world, and he's putting baseball on the map. And also, you got to think about the fans too. I believe the ticket sales for the Angels is going to dip. People came to see Ohtani. You saw a whole wave of just the Asian population, the Japanese audience come around and surround baseball and be like, oh, okay, cool. He's kind of like a national hero, kind of like Ichiro Suzuki and Hideki Matsui. But I don't know. As an Angels fan, I kind of wish you would have kept Ohtani. And as a baseball fan, hearing all this stuff about the gambling and stuff like that, I don't know. It's crazy how it's kind of all unfolding with the whole interpreter and stuff like that. Like he was, I think, over $4 million in debt. I just don't understand, because I think he gets paid he doesn't get paid that much. Absolutely not. So it's kind of interesting to find out. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how exactly he had the confidence to just gamble all that money knowing that he didn't have it. Like he couldn't, there could be very much gambling issues or problem or stuff like that. But I don't know, there's a lot of gray areas, and I feel like within the upcoming MLB season, it's probably going to clear up.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of interesting kind of things about the Ohtani story. I mean, first of all, I think what a lot of people are asking is, how, as an interpreter, first of all, do you rack up a $4.5 million gambling debt? I think that's the first thing. That's what a lot of people wondering, really, when the story first broke. And also, how, as Shohei Ohtani, do you not notice $4.5 million gone from your account? That's something obviously Shohei Ohtani has a lot of money. I don't think anyone's going to debate that, considering the contract he just got and the endorsements he gets and all that. But I think $4.5 million, even for someone like him, is a significant amount of money. So I think there were a lot of holes in that story, and I'm glad Ohtani addressed it in full, saying he basically was the victim of being scammed. Frankly, I do believe him, but I think there are a lot of things that need to be uncovered with the story. So I think, so I think we're going to see that unfold as the season goes on. And for just the Dodgers and how this story might affect them, I think it could be a distraction to the team. You sign Ohtani, who is a bigger than life talent. I mean, he's, as you said, he was an international superstar with the Angels. He drawn a lot of fans to that games. I'm sure as an Angels fan, you could see a lot more people of, right, a lot more Asian people, frankly, coming to Angels games watching Ohtani. And I think,
definitely.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what he does. He is that kind of talent. He is that kind of player. So I think it could be a distraction for the Dodgers, because he's already so bigger than life, and Now you're getting some negative attention to him for the first time in his career. We'll see how that affects him. We'll see how that affects the team. So I think it's definitely going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to be, I think, just interesting to see how the story unfolds, and if we get more news and stuff about Ohtani and his interpreter.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, so now for the Dodgers, they did sign Yoshinobu Yamamoto to a huge contract for $300 million in the offseason. Now, just as a baseball fan, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the Dodgers giving someone that contract that big who hasn't played in the MLB ever in his career?
I would say like I said earlier, I think the Dodgers are trying to make that push for a dynasty. And I think the pitcher is only like 25 years old, but they gave him a whopping contract, which was crazy. It seems like sports is doing that a lot nowadays, like in the NFL, NBA. Like it seems like a lot of players are getting paid, but hasn't really kind of like proved their services. You know what I mean? Like I know, obviously, like if you watch the World Baseball Classic, you see, the team of Japan, like they're always doing, they have great talent out there. They're doing good. But the MLB is, you have the best baseball players from growing all around the world. I would say a couple years, not a couple years, like probably like less than a decade. There has been more and more just these over the seas baseball players coming over to the States to showcase their talent. And of course, you have a lot from South America and the Dominican Republic, and it's nice to see baseball become more of a diverse sport, which I think is especially, it's what baseball needs. They have a grueling 162 game season, and trying to keep the fans hooked every day, like watching all those games, it's going to be hard. So kind of having like that aspect of diversity, kind of like how soccer does it, how it's like all over the world, and during the World Cup everybody like plays against each other, but there's like little mini tournaments and stuff like that. That's essentially what the MLB season is. And obviously, like what we talked about the Dodgers, like you can play good, you can play amazing all season long. From the last 5 years, 4 times the Dodgers broke over 100 games in the win column. So I don't know, I think it's good for baseball to include more of different cultures and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. I think, baseball has been a sport with a lot of Korean players, a lot of Japanese players, and I think we're seeing that a lot more now. And specifically with Yamamoto, he was incredible in Japan. He was one of the greatest pitchers of all time in the NPB, where the Japanese league. So I was a fan of them giving the big contract. The Mets were involved heavily, which is my favorite team, and I was a big fan if they were to give him that contract as well. So, yeah, I definitely think it was a good contract by the Dodgers, and like you said, they're trying to build a dynasty. And when you build a dynasty, specifically what you want is younger players. And the fact that Yamamoto is 25 is really incredible. You're able to get a 25-year-old amazing starting pitcher on the free agent market. That never happened. So I was a big fan of this contract for them, and I think it's a positive for them in a lot more ways than one, including what you talked about, which were the international effects of signing more Japanese players. Already you have Ohtani, and already you've had a lot of international players. You've had a player like Fernando Valenzuela, who back in the day transcended his whole country. So I think the Dodgers are known for that, and I definitely think it was a great signing by them in more ways than one, both on the field and off.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, so that was our first segment here. We talked about the Dodgers and the big expectations going into the year. We're going to go to a break after this, but before that, we're going to preview our second segment, which is going to be talking about the playoff predictions for next year. Me and Eric will both give our takes on who will make the playoffs and who just missed it as well, so stay tuned for that. So we'll go to a break here, but we'll talk about that after, so we'll see you after that. Bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. And we are here with special guest Eric from the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. So in our second segment here, we are going to be talking about our playoff predictions for the season. Season's coming up very, very close, so excited to talk about this. And Eric, why don't you go first? Start off with who you got making the playoffs this year.
All right, first, from the National League, I have my number one seed to make that first playoff bye. It's going to be the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves has been consistently good. They're they're neck and neck with my number two is going to be the Dodgers, like what we talked about earlier in the last segment, how they just have all this firepower and they're ready to make a push. And they were always that just a beat short. And hopefully with all the acquisitions they made during the offseason, they can, kind of handle the season pretty solemnly, like not like freaking out during the end of the season or, kind of becoming recluse during the playoffs. And then number third, I kind of have the Diamondbacks coming back. That was a really, really good run that they made. They started off sweeping the Dodgers, and they just kept impressing to beat the Phillies. Like, it was absolutely insane what they did. And you have a lot of those young talent that is going to be coming back and probably coming back for years to come. So I can just see that Diamondback team getting better and better. In the fourth seed, I have the Phillies coming back. They, it seems like every season they kind of make a push. They kind of regress a little bit. But I don't know, they have a really good team. Obviously, the city of Philadelphia has, an NFL, NBA, their teams are always very, very good, especially with all the fanatic pressure and stuff like that they're under. But I think this year the Phillies are probably going to do better. And going to number 5, I have the Milwaukee Brewers. Once again, a group of young guys led by Christian Yelich, and they have a pretty nice bullpen. They have a pretty nice, starting rotation. They're probably going to be. Honestly, if I was one of them, I would probably maybe dig for another starting pitcher to kind of cement, kind of stability inside their pitching organization. And then number 6, I have the San Diego Padres. Lately, the San Diego Padres, they got, they have Fernando Tatis Jr. and they have Manny Machado, and it feels like out of all the teams in Major League Baseball, they have kind of been, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but they've kind of been the biggest kind of letdown, where a couple of seasons ago during their offseason, they kind of did what the Dodgers were doing now. They made a lot of acquisitions over the offseason, paid a lot of money for these big stars, and they came up short in the last couple of seasons. So you can expect them to bounce back in San Diego.
Okay, so I mostly agree with what you have. So for me personally, as the best team in the NL, I have the Dodgers. You had the number 2, so it's not anything crazy here. It's like what we talked about, the Dodgers, just the incredible offseason they had. I mean, again, you put it, wow, I think that's a really good estimate of what it was. Ohtani, Yamamoto, Teoscar Hernandez, Tyler Glass now, so I do have the number 1. Number 2, I have the Braves. No surprise here again. Dodgers and Braves, as you talked about, I think they're pretty easily the 2 elite teams in the National League. They didn't do that much this offseason. Adding Chris Sale, I think, was a nice get. But overall, the team is just incredible. The lineup's incredible. And every young player they do get, they extend, so they're not going to be leaving for a little while. So I have the Dodgers number 2. As the third best team in the National League, I have also the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks had an amazing season last year, making the World Series when really nobody expected them to. So I have the number 3. I love what they did this offseason. They added Eugenio Suarez. They added Eduardo Rodriguez, Jock Peterson's the DH position. So I love what they did this offseason building off of their World Series run. So I was really excited for them. Number 4, I have also the Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Phillies are a great team. They didn't add much this offseason, but kind of like the Braves, they didn't really need to. They re-signed Aaron Nola, which was pretty great. Zach Wheeler's arguably the best pitcher in baseball. Aaron Nola's great. Ranger Suarez is great. The back end of that pitching staff needs a little bit of help, but I think their bullpen's great. I think the rotation, I think the lineup is pretty amazing. I mean, of course, you have Bryce Harper there. You have so many other great guys as well. So, and then number 6, the team I have winning the NL Central is going to be the Cincinnati Reds. So we disagree on this, obviously. So I love the Reds' young team. I think they have a lot of great young talent. I think really led by that infield core. They have lost some people, with Novelli Marte, one of the top prospects, being suspended for steroids, and losing another top prospect to injury. But they still have great talent, I think, with players like Spencer Steer, Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McLean, Christian Encarnacion Strand, and some other great veteran players as well. I love what they did to the pitching staff, signing Frankie Montas, having Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo there. So, yeah, we do agree in the NL Central. So you did mention about the Brewers. So I'm not as high on the Brewers as you personally. Obviously they did kind of gear towards trading some people. They traded their best player in Corbin Burns this offseason. So he got traded to Baltimore, which was a big decrease to their pitching staff. So I would agree with you. I think if they do want to compete, they should definitely add another pitcher to that pitching staff, 100%. So I would agree in that case. They did make some nice additions, though, like adding Rhys Hoskins. I thought that was a great addition. So, and Yelich, of course, is great. He had a nice bounce-back season. So, overall, I think I also missed one, which might have been the Padres. So I also have the Padres making the playoffs. I love what they did towards the end of the offseason, adding Dylan Cease. I think he's a really great pitcher and a guy who really helps legitimize that pitching staff. Of course, Tatis is an amazing talent. Machado is an amazing talent. Ha-Sung Kim is a great player as well. Of course, they have Xander Bogaerts even. So they have top prospect Jackson Merrill, who I really love. So I'm really high on the Padres as well. So, yeah, just those are my thoughts. So why did you have some of the teams you had missing it, like the Giants, for example? Why did you not have them making it? I didn't have them making it either, but I'm curious for your reasoning.
San Francisco, they within the last couple of decades they've had their handful of championships, but honestly I kind of not like their time is like short, or when it comes to like the MLB success, but it's that regression where people expect these teams to be really, really good, but then you have young teams coming up, like I mentioned, like the Padres are kind of on their way back. The Diamondbacks, the Phillies, the Brewers, and the Braves, and all the Dodgers, the 6 teams that I kind of picked for the NL, I feel like they kind of want it more, especially the Dodgers organization and what they did during the offseason. But the Giants are always, they always have a good baseball team. If you pay attention to the MLB season, usually the NL Western Division is always it's always so tight, and this year it's not going to disappoint. So,
yeah, definitely. So for the Giants, for me, they were the number. If there were 7 teams, I'd have the Giants in the playoffs. They just missed for me. I think it was really between them and the Padres. I did really love what they did this offseason. I think they added a lot of nice players. Jung-Hoo Lee from Korea is a really nice guy. Jorge Soler is a great power bat. They also added some pitchers as well. They just added Matt Chapman, who is a late addition, so that was a nice one. So for me, what the Giants really lack is a big star. For me, they have a lot of great players. They have a lot of great players, including, I forgot to even mention Blake Snell, who won the Cy Young. They added him. So they added a lot of great players, but I think they are missing that big star, that franchise guy. I mean, of course, with the Padres, you have Tatis and Machado. You have, before that, the Dodgers, of course, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, the Braves, Acuna. So I think when you look at these teams above them, the Giants don't really have that guy you can point to and say, hey, that's an MVP candidate year in and year out. So I think that is something the Giants kind of are missing. So that's why I didn't have them making the playoffs. So now I'm curious about one other team. I'm curious about the Cubs as well. The Cubs are a team I was very close to naming as the winner of the NL Central, but I have them second. I had the Reds coming in first. So what are your overall thoughts on the Cubs and what they're trying to do and trying to make it back to relevancy?
Once again, it's kind of like that that there's so many like good young teams that are trying to make a name for themselves. And when you were mentioning the Reds, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that. I kind of wish I would have put them, higher on the list now. But I don't know, like I like the Cubbies, they're honestly, I love watching the games. Like Wrigley Field is just such a beautiful park downtown Chicago, and there's obviously been a lot of great players come from the Cubs, but I don't know. I guess I'm not as a Cubs believer, but I don't know. Maybe Chi-Town will produce a winner, either the White Sox or the Cubs for coming back into the playoffs.
Yeah, I was really close to naming the Cubs as the NL Central winner. I think they need to do a little bit more this offseason, personally, for me. They did have a big splash in the first half, adding Craig Counsell as their manager, which is a huge shock to everyone. So I think they added a nice piece there to manager. Not really a player, but still important, I think. So other than that, just one more team I'm wondering, a team I was close to naming in the playoffs. So one of the most confusing teams, I'd say, in all of baseball, which is the New York Mets. So what are your thoughts? I was close to having them make the playoffs. I did have to put my bias aside a little bit just to have them miss the playoffs. But, yeah, so what are your overall thoughts on the Mets and just the kind of turbulent few seasons they've had now?
I think they have all the talent in the world. I just think that there's I don't want to say like front office, problem, but I know a couple of seasons ago where they basically borrowed Justin Verlander from the Astros. And I don't know, like that whole thing kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, what kind of organization would do that, especially spend all this money to like it feels like they try so hard to achieve. And sometimes, like even in life, like sometimes if you try like super hard, like it doesn't quite like kind of compute. But sometimes you just gotta let your players like do the kind of do your bidding for you instead of being like a general manager and constantly nitpicking and signing and trading and signing. I guess like just like the inconsistent, like if a franchise isn't stable starting from the front office, then I think down the hatch, doesn't matter how much talent you have, it doesn't matter how much how many ticket sales, like you need that to be able to have like a successful season in a baseball team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And watching it firsthand as a Mets fan, the last few seasons were a little bit of kind of, you didn't really know what was going on a lot. The Verlander thing was, of course, it was, in my opinion, it was kind of funny. We signed him to a big contract, 2 years, like $100 million or $90 million or whatever, something like that. And then we trade him back to the Astros like 6 months later. It was a really just interesting situation that ended up happening. I do think the Mets have kind of tried fixing that now. They did bring over David Stearns as their new president of baseball operations from Milwaukee, a guy who is from New York, and I think he does know what he's talking about. He knows a lot about baseball.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, we've seen the Brewers, as you talked about, we've seen the Brewers over the past few years be very competitive always, and I think bringing that expertise over to the Mets is going to help kind of make that organization a little bit more competent, because it hasn't been, frankly, for the past few years. I mean, they've gone over manager after manager, general manager after general manager. So I think bringing over these kind of guys will definitely help with the organization and the direction it is going. So
yeah, definitely. They're good. They're a great baseball team. Every single time you see them on TV, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like they have a chance, but then stuff unfolds during play and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. They're the Mets. No, I'm just like not trying to pull any strings, but no, like they're a really good baseball team that could be they could be pretty high end.
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree. I think we have all the talent in the world. Of course, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, even the young guys are starting to come up now. We have like Francisco Alvarez, Brandon Nimmo. We have, so I think I think we have a lot of talent, but in the end, it is just putting it together, having a good season and finishing. I think injuries have hurt us a lot in the past few years as well. Already this year with Senga getting hurt. So I think just putting it together and having a nice season would be great. And
of course,
that's really what I'm looking forward to. I think the Mets do have a good team this season, but I think there are, frankly, just teams better than them. I mean, the Padres, I think, are better. I think the Phillies are better. I think the Diamondbacks are better. Of course, the Dodgers and Braves are better. So I think it's just simply that not being up to the level of these kind of teams. So, but I am looking forward to seeing what the Mets do this year. And whatever we know about the Mets, we know it won't be boring. We know something will happen with them. That's
exactly.
interesting. So,
I agree 110%.
Yeah. All right. So that was the end of segment 2. That was the end of our playoff predictions for this year. Season does start on Thursday, so I'm really excited to watch that, of course. So I want to thank Eric for joining our show today. You can catch his podcast, the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Western. So thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you so much for running the show.
All right, my man. Thank you for having me. Good luck, Mets.
Thank you. Good luck, Angels. All right. So, there we go. We're now going to go back here. All right, we're back here. So that was our second segment, of course. Thank you again, Eric, for joining our show. So we're going to move into our third segment here, which is going to be about the spring training standings, and spring training is ending today. So I would like to just go over the final spring training standings, give or take 1 or 2 games, because the season is ending today and games are going on as I stream. So we'll be talking about that, and I'm interested to show my takeaways from it. So we'll go over that, and we'll see you after that. So thanks and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, which is going to be talking about the spring training standings, which are majority final. There are a few games going on right now, but those will only be 1 to the win or loss column, so I don't think it's too influential to the standings. So, we'll be talking about it and just get my takes on it. So, first we're going to start off with the Grapefruit League and the Baltimore Orioles. So, the Orioles did win the Grapefruit League by a pretty good margin, going 23-6 and having a 7.93 winning percentage. No surprises here. Younger players usually play a lot in spring training, and the Orioles have probably the best young team in the entire league. Just so many young stars, including Jackson Holliday, of course, Colton Cowser, Adley Rutschman, guys like that. So no surprise here that they finished number 1. After that, at number 2, we have the Detroit Tigers at 20-9 and a 6.90 winning percentage. I'm kind of not surprised about this, but happy about this. I think the Tigers have a good young team, and they have good players as well. So I'm happy for them that they did finish so high, and they finally have something to look forward to this year. Hopefully Spencer Torkelson can break out. I think that's really all you can ask for as a Tigers fan. After that, we have Boston, who went 15-12 with a 600 winning percentage to finish third in the Grapefruit. Good for them. They've had a lot of injuries affect them this season, so I'm glad they did have something positive go their way and that they did finish high in the Grapefruit League standings and in the spring training standings. So really happy for that, and good for them there. After that, we did have Washington finish at 15-12 and have a 5.56 winning percentage. Again, not surprised about this for Washington. Like I've kind of said with Detroit and Baltimore, Washington has a really great young team, and when you have a really great young team, it's going to translate to spring training. You are going to finish really well. So happy for them that this did happen with this, and that they did finish so high. I think they could be a sleeper team if their young talent does come up. Guys like Dylan Cruz, guys like James Wood, C.J. Abrams, if they perform really well. So excited to watch them, even as a Mets fan, and just excited to see that core in action. After that, 5th, we had the New York Mets, 15-14. With a 5.17 winning percentage, kind of a representation of what they'll do this year, just exactly average, 15-14. So I think it's just a representation of what they are going to do this year, be mediocre. So not a surprise here. I think this record, again, shows what's going to happen with them. So they did have really good pitching this spring, which is nice, and hopefully that does translate to the season this year. So it's really all you can ask for as a Mets fan, and that's what I'm hoping for. After that, we have the Cardinals at 12-12, exactly 500. Kind of the same as the Mets. I expected them to be average, and that's what they were. no surprises here. Again, their hitting core is very good, but their pitching core is so bad. So I do expect them to kind of be exactly average. Not a surprise here. So yeah, makes sense, this standing here. After that, we had Houston at 12-14. Kind of surprising that they did finish under 500 with a .481 winning percentage. Again, spring training doesn't mean much going into the season, but they did have some of their stars playing a good amount, like Kyle Tucker, Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman. They had Framber Valdez start a few times, so kind of surprising they did finish under 500, but they had some injuries get in their way of spring training, so I'm not too worried about them, and overall I still think they'll be pretty good. After that, we had the Yankees finish at 14-16 with a .467 winning percentage. Kind of not surprised here again. Yankees have a great team. I don't think anybody's doubting that, but overall, I do think that there were some injuries that affected them, and I do think that those kind of distracted them in the season, in spring training this year. So not a big surprise, and not really something that was too surprising to me because of what did happen this spring training with the injuries to Judge, to Cole. So yeah. The Marlins finished at 2-12 with a .455 winning percentage, below the Yankees. Again, not a surprise here. They're not that good, and they've had a lot of injuries, so I didn't expect them to play that well, and they didn't, even in their home state. So not too surprising here, and kind of what I'm expecting them this year. But I also think that they'll finish a little bit worse because of the pitching. So be interesting to watch their season, definitely. After that, we got the Pirates at 13-16 with a .448 winning percentage. Now, this was kind of surprising to me because, as I stated, young teams perform well in the regular season, in the spring training, and the Pirates obviously are a good young team. So having all this young talent and finishing only at this clip is a little surprising to me. Again, it's not a huge deal because it is spring training, but if I was a Pirates fan, I would have liked to see a little bit more. I think you did see some nice guys develop more, like Jared Jones, your number 5 starter, who did end up making the MLB roster. So I think that's good if you're a Pirates fan, and that's something exciting to see. So you can only hope that translates into the regular season. After that, we have the Atlanta Braves finishing at 12-15. Not that much of a surprise here. They're a great team. They don't need to play their starters that much, so not too surprising they finished below, and they don't have the best farm system because they have so many great players, so not a huge surprise that they finished this low. After that, we got Toronto at 13-17. Again, not that surprising. A good team. They didn't really play the starters all that much. Kind of trying to see what the young guys had in store for them. So not a big surprise they finished kind of lower in the standings. So I wouldn't be worried if I'm a Blue Jays fan. I'd just be watching them, seeing what does happen this season. And I don't think spring training is going to have any effect on them at all. But we'll see what happens, I guess. So after that, we have Tampa Bay, who was 11-16 at a .407 winning percentage. Not a huge surprise here again. The Rays are kind of going through a transitional period with all the injuries they've suffered with guys like Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen, Shane McClanahan, the off-the-field situations they've had with Wander Franco. So I think they're trying to figure out who's going to be starting this year, who's going to be playing a lot of time. So they're kind of going through a transitional period this entire spring training and probably a lot of the season as well. So it's not surprising that they finished this low. I think they'll do much better this season, so that's really all you can ask for if you are a Rays fan. After that, we have the Phillies, who finished 9-15. Kind of surprising here. I think they have a great team, and finishing 9-15 with a .375 winning percentage is kind of low for what I think they could do. So, yeah, that's really what I'd be worried about if I was a Phillies fan. Again, not too worried because I think they're still a great team, but they dealt with a lot of injuries, including Taijuan Walker, some of their bullpen guys. So I think that's really the reason they did finish this low in the Grapefruit League, and you're just hoping that they can do better in the regular season. After that, we have the Minnesota Twins at 9-19, who did finish last in the Grapefruit League. Not a huge surprise here. I think they have a lot of players who are good but are kind of injury prone, like Carlos Correa, like Byron Buxton. So I think they were just trying to figure out who's going to play in spring training, kind of just getting some bodies on the field. So not a huge surprise that the Twins finished low, but I think they're pretty clearly one of the better teams in the AL. So I wouldn't be too mad if I'm a Twins fan. I wouldn't be too worried at all. So I think it's just spring training blues, and I think they'll be better going into the season. So, all right, going over now the Cactus League for spring training. At the top, we of course have the Kings, the Dodgers, 14-5, 700 winning percentage. I mean, they're incredible. They're gonna win. They're gonna win the. They're gonna be great in the regular season. They're great in the spring training. So not too much to say about the Dodgers. I think they're pretty great, and I don't think really anybody's debating that. They're a very good team, and they are the elite of this league. So not too surprising. The Giants at 15-11. That was something that did surprise me a little bit. They've had a lot of pitching injuries to their team, and the fact that they did finish so high still gives me hope if I were a Giants fan. The pitching did come through, the depth they've had, especially Jordan Hicks. He was doing really well during spring training, so I was happy for him to see that. I did think the contract they gave him was a little bit interesting trying to make him a starting pitcher, so that was really it. But yeah, I'm excited to watch the Giants this season, excited to see what they do, and overall, just excited to watch them. Colorado was third, finishing 16-12. Some of the best news the Rockies have had in years. I mean, they haven't had much success in the league the past few years. So them finishing this high in the Cactus League in spring training, I think is pretty great. As I talked about last episode, we had a whole segment dedicated to them. You can see the fruits of their labor coming up. How they've been so bad, but they've been bad in getting young talent across the way. Guys like Adel Amador, Ezekiel Tovar, who they just extended, Chase Dollander, Jordan Beck. So I think there are a lot of good young talent coming up with this Rockies core, and I'm excited for them finishing third in the Cactus League. And I'm just hopeful the players could do something. I still think the organization doesn't really know what they're doing, but overall, I am excited to watch them and excited to see what they do this season. After that, we have Chicago at 16-14, having a .532 winning percentage. Chicago is kind of just average, and I think you see that here, just a little bit above average. I'd say 16-12, finishing at .533. Not a surprise here. I think they have a lot of good players, but I kind of think they needed to add more this offseason. So I'm not surprised they finished 16-12. They had some nice play this spring training from some of their young guys, but overall, I don't think there's anything to be worried about. And they finished fourth, so it's definitely still a positive. Milwaukee, their NL-centric counterpart, finished 16-14 and had a .533 winning percentage. Not a surprise here from Milwaukee. They have, again, a young team with the subtractions they've made, especially to Corbin Burns. So these guys are going to come up and they're going to start performing. So glad to see them winning something and being high in the Cactus League, going off they're going to have an interesting year this year. So it's nice to start off on a good foot. Seattle, the league had finishing 14-13 with a .519 winning percentage. I thought the Mariners do a little bit better. I think they have a lot of great young talent and a lot of great players as well. So I thought they would have done a little bit better, but they were above 500 in spring training. So I don't think it's a big deal and not something I'd be worried about if I was a Mariners fan. So not too surprising here. After that, we have the Cleveland Guardians, who finished bang average at 14-14, kind of just describing them and their franchise over the past few years. So not too surprising. So, the Guardians can be really boring this year, kind of just like their spring training standings. I don't really have much to say. I think the most exciting thing for them is going to be the MLB draft when they have the first overall pick. So that's kind of it. So not much to say about the Guardians. Kansas City, they finished 13-13 as well, bang average. They're also an average team, not really in the way that the Guardians are. I think they've gotten a lot better, and I think they're going to be better next year as well, but the younger guy still has to develop. They added some nice players this season in Seth Lugo, in Michael Wacha, Hunter Renfroe, guys like that. So I think overall they're a good team, but I think this spring training standing kind of represents where they are right now as a team. Arizona, 14-15. I thought they'd do better, honestly. I think they have a great young team, especially seeing them making the World Series last year. So I thought they'd do better, but not too surprising for them. And I think they're going to be really good going into the year. And yeah, it's all you can hope for as a Diamondbacks fan, just them being really good, trying to make it to the World Series again. And that's kind of it. So, yeah, just hopefully about that. After that, we had Oakland at 13-14, doing much better than I thought they would. I thought they would win like 2 games because they're not very good. I think most people know that at this point. A's are not good, even in spring training. So, yeah, surprising for the A's, but good for them. Finally have something to show and are excited about. So, yeah, great job by the A's to not finish last and show at least something for the young core going forward. San Diego finished 9-10. Didn't play that much games, which was surprising, but they've had a lot of turnover this spring training with some injuries with the Dylan Cease trade, so I'm not going to put too much stock in this. As I said last segment, I still have them being a playoff team, so it's not too surprising that they were like this, but I think they're going to do much better in the regular season, and that's kind of it. Cincinnati, I thought would do much better. They were 11-15, third worst team in the Cactus League. I think they have a great young team, and I think they have a lot of great young players, but you've had already some subtractions to your team with Novelli Marte, with Edwin Arroyo, sorry, I forgot his name for a second, with injury and suspensions. So not too surprising with their young players being out a little bit, but they still have younger guys like Ellie De La Cruz, like Matt McClain, who got hurt as well, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Spencer Steer. We're not exactly sure how significant of time these guys played during spring training, but they still have a great young team and a team I'm looking forward to watching. As you've known during the podcast, I'm very high in them, and yeah. Texas finished 11-15, which was surprising to me. They arguably had the top spring training performer this entire spring training with Wyatt Langford, who was just hitting bombs after bombs after bombs. So definitely surprising because they had such a great player during spring training. But as I've said a lot, their pitching is not ideal. So I understand why they finished below, because they finished this low because of the pitching, even though they do have some good young players. So, and last but not least, we have the White Sox finishing as the worst team in the entire spring training, 9-20, below the lowest Cactus League team and the lowest spring training team as well. Not surprising here. They are not good. They do not have much going for them right now, especially in spring training. Not much to say here. If you're a White Sox fan, you know this. If you're a baseball fan, you know this. The White Sox are not very good. They're not going to be very good this season. So, yeah, not great. And it's kind of it if you're a White Sox fan. I think you kind of expect these things for this year. So, that was our fourth segment, talking about the spring training standings and it being final. So, we're going to go to our fourth segment here, which is going to be talking about news around the league, just some general news stories. There's only a few today, but they were kind of more notable than usual. So, I'll be talking about them in depth a little bit. So, yeah, we'll be doing that, and we'll see you after that, our fourth and final segment, and we'll talk to you then. So thanks. See you after that. Bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, so we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth and final segment, which is going to be talking about some general news stories around the league, some news stuff I did want to touch upon, but maybe weren't notable enough to get their own segment. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that. So, first one we'll be talking about is the Orioles. They signed Tony Kemp to a minor league contract. Tony Kemp has played with Cincinnati this spring training, but got cut and now is finding a home on the Orioles, most likely AAA team. A good signing for the Orioles, in my opinion. I think Tony Kemp is very valuable veteran depth. He's a guy that just knows what he's doing, has some nice speed, good bat-to-ball skills, a guy you can call up in a pinch, and he can start for 2 or 3 games and be just an okay player. That's kind of all you need from him. And the Orioles have a lot of young infield depth because of the young team that they do have, but always finding a veteran is important, and I think Tony Kemp brings valuable skill set to any team, and especially a team in the position like the Orioles are right now. So I think it was a great signing by the Orioles, and I think it was a good veteran depth move for them, and not too much to complain about here. After that, we have the Cardinals. Big news coming out of there. Dylan Carlson got into a collision in the outfield during a spring training game yesterday and will be out for a few weeks, starting the season on the IL. Victor Scott is selected, and he will be their opening day starting center fielder. Dylan Carlson was supposed to be, of course, but as I just stated, he got hurt, so he is not going to be starting. So Victor Scott is a great prospect, in my opinion, a guy who can hit really well, has great defensive skills, I think is a really good prospect for the Cardinals, and someone I'm overall excited to watch for their season and excited to see how he does perform. Now, it does suck for the Cardinals, as Dylan Carlson was a guy I had going into the year that I think would be really, really good. I think this is a guy that could really break out finally. He had a fine season last year, but with him being such a top prospect these last few years and being in trade rumors since he hasn't really performed that much, with traders swiftly with the Yankees, we thought he might be traded there at the deadline, but I think he has a lot of potential and has great bat-to-ball skills. He's just a great hitter overall, so this is a guy I definitely think has a great future with the Cardinals, and I am sad that he is going to miss opening day. But I think Victor Scott is a notable replacement and a guy who can perform well. But again, it does suck with Dylan Carlson, a guy I thought had a lot of talent. I still think has a lot of talent. I don't think this is ending his career or anything. So, yeah, I'm hopeful to watch him when he gets back, and I'm excited to see what he does do when he gets back. So, yeah, definitely a guy I want to watch here, and definitely see what happens with his career and his season going forward. But again, Victor Scott, I think, is a good move to bring him up. I think he is MLB ready, just doesn't have a spot because the Cardinals we're so flushed on starting outfielders. So he brings great defensive skills, has great speed, is a good hitter. So I think it's a good player for the Cardinals and someone I'm excited to watch. Now, the Cardinals do only have 3 outfielders on their opening day roster. Now it seems main outfielders, they do have some versatility guys, but main outfielders, so it could prompt them to look at some more people to play the outfield. Michael A. Taylor, I think, was a good fit before he got snatched up by the division rival Pirates. I think you could potentially bring back your old friend Tommy Pham if he wants to come back, and because you're not guaranteeing him a starter role, I'm not sure if he would do that, but I still think it's worth it to check in. I've heard online that Jake McCarthy was available in trade talks from Bob Nightingale, so I think that could potentially be a fit for the Cardinals if they are in a pinch and need some outfield depth. So it's going to be interesting to see where the Cardinals do go from here about Dylan Carlson and now having Victor Scott in the lineup. Again, I'm not very high on them going into the year. I don't think their pitching is going to hold off. I don't think the pitching is going to be good enough to make them competitive. I think their hitting's great, but the pitching, as I've talked about so many times, is just so bad in my opinion. So I think that's really the key, getting the pitching to just be in games and having offenses, and they're having the offense slug their way through. So all you can ask for if you are a Cardinals fan, but I don't think that's what's going to happen now. Jose Urena, in a surprise, has made the Rangers opening day roster. Some more pitching depth for the Rangers. As I've talked about so many times throughout this show, their pitching depth is just not where it needs to be. Max Scherzer's hurt, Jacob deGrom's hurt, Tyler Mahle's hurt, and those are 2 big guys in my opinion. And starting the season with Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Andrew Heaney as your top 3 pitchers is not ideal in my opinion. Dane Dunning's fine. Michael Lorenzen, he just signed, is fine, but your pitching depth is not great, and because of that, you're going to have guys like Jose Urena, who is probably not an MLB caliber player, on the roster right now. So you just need more pitching depth, and I think veterans like Urena represent that, and I think are good additions for Texas, and overall are good. So yeah, great job by Texas to sign more pitching depth before with Michael Lorenzen. But I think that still needs some more, because I wouldn't feel comfortable if I was a Rangers fan having Jose Urena on my opening day roster in the year of 2024. So just my thoughts, but we'll see what they do, and we'll see how this is affected once Scherzer, Mahle, and DeGrom come back, whenever they do come back. I think it'll be the second half, but we'll see how they do progress with their injuries. I think Scherzer and DeGrom are going to be more notable to watch as they are older and more injury prone in the past few years. DeGrom especially, Scherzer only really in the past year or so. Before that, he was pretty much all good, but he's gotten injured in the past 2 years with pretty significant injuries. So it'll be notable to watch how they come back and see how they do perform from their injuries. The Mets released Luke Voit, which was not surprising. He had done just so bad during the spring training period, not performing well at all. And it was surprising for them to release him, though, because they did have not a lot of DH depth for the first 10 games. JD Martinez is starting the first 10 games of his Mets contract in AAA, which I didn't really touch upon, which I meant to, but I never got to it. He is doing that because he is signing so late and he didn't get spring training to ramp up. So he needs to ramp up and, as he put it, make sure he doesn't get injured and screw everything up. So, yeah, not a surprise that he is taking that minor league time, but I figured with the Mets having guys like Ji-Man Choi and Luke Voit being on the team, I figured one of those guys would start on opening day to be their DH, but I guess not. It'll be interesting to see who they do play there now on opening day, which most likely will be on Friday, as Thursday, I assume, will be rained out for the Mets, but we'll see what happens. So, yeah, definitely interested to see what happens with the Mets and overall what is going to be happening with the DH position. I kind of figured Mark Vientos would start the season on the MLB roster because of JD Martinez starting in AAA, but they don't believe in him at all, and he's starting in AAA, so I kind of figured it'd be him, Ji-Man Choi, or Luke Voit starting the season as the DH, but none of them are, so it's going to be fun to watch who will be the starting DH on opening day. I'm not really sure yet, but we'll see what happens, and yeah, going to be interested to watch that. Joel Sherman of the New York Post is reporting that the Yankees and Mets both remain interested in Jordan Montgomery, but at their own price points. So basically what he's saying is if his contract offer falls so low that the Mets and Yankees feel like it's something they have to act upon because it is such great value, they'll sign him, which makes sense. In the end, I still think he goes for a long-term deal for the Red Sox or the Angels, but we'll definitely watch and see what happens here. So yeah, I think the Mets and Yankees both being interested makes sense. Both have lost their aces to start the year. Both just need overall pitching depth as well. So I think them remaining interested in Montgomery makes a lot of sense, and I think it is something to watch as the season goes on and to potentially see if they do end up signing Montgomery, one of these teams. Again, I think Red Sox or Angels personally for him, but it's still interesting to hear that they both are interested in signing Montgomery and are interested in his services. So yeah, going to be interesting. Sorry I keep saying interesting, but it's going to be significant, let's say, to watch Montgomery over the next few days or so as opening day and the season does start to roll on. So we will see if he does sign somewhere, and I guess the Mets and Yankees are a fit, and we'll see what ends up happening with those guys. So, yeah. So, thank you so much for watching today's episode. That is it. Remember, you can find us any place on social media. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you so much for watching, and see you tomorrow, and we'll see what baseball throws at us tomorrow. So, see you and have a great day. Bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.